You make more money than you did 2 years ago. You can feel it in your paycheck. And somehow not in your life. The number on your check went up. The number in your account didn't. And if someone asked you tonight where the difference went, you couldn't really say. It just went. So you do the obvious thing. The thing everyone tells you to do. You decide to earn more. You chase the raise, you pick up the side gig, you grind a little harder because that's the answer, right? More money in, more breathing room out. That's the promise. And for a little while it works. About a month. Then the new money disappears into the exact same nowhere the old money went. Same squeeze, slightly bigger numbers. Here's what I need you to hear before we go one step further. You are not bad with money. You're running on a machine engineered on purpose to keep the finish line exactly where it is no matter how fast you run. And the strangest part? Somebody described that machine in complete detail almost 7 decades ago. Before you were born. Before the feed. Before the apps and the algorithm. He saw the whole thing coming. A max. This is max sense, where we take apart the psychology your money actually runs on, so the machine stops quietly running you. Today we're answering one question. Why does working harder keep not working? And why is that not a flaw in your character, but a feature of the system you're standing inside? If that's ever sat in your chest at midnight, subscribe. Taking apart machines like this one is the whole point of this channel. In 1958, an economist named John Kenneth Galbraith published a book called The Affluent Society. Understand the moment. America was booming, factories humming, suburbs spreading, paychecks rising. By every number that mattered, the country was winning. And Galbraith looked at all that prosperity and asked the question nobody at the party wanted to hear. If we have more than any society in history, why does it still feel like it's never, ever enough? His answer became one of the most important and most uncomfortable ideas in modern economics. He called it the dependence effect. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here is the idea in his own words. Wants are increasingly created by the process by which they are satisfied. Read that twice. The thing that's supposed to satisfy your desire is the same thing manufacturing the desire in the first place. The factory makes the product and the wanting of it. Then it sells you the cure for an itch it gave you. Galbraith saw that treadmill in 1958. He didn't have the word feed. He didn't have a smartphone buzzing every 11 minutes. He didn't need any of it. He saw the machine in its raw form and wrote down exactly how it works. Nearly 7 decades later, that machine isn't a theory in an old book. It's your burnout. It's your paycheck that evaporates. It's the reason the finish line keeps sliding away every time you get close. So let's take the machine apart. For moving parts. By the time we're done, you'll see it running everywhere you look. Start with the first part. The part that makes you want things in the first place. Think about the last thing you genuinely felt you needed. Not food. Not rent. Not the lights staying on. Something you suddenly, urgently had to have. A phone. A gadget. A life that looked more like someone else's. Be honest about your phone for a second. It works. It made calls yesterday. It'll make calls tomorrow. The camera is fine. And yet there's this quiet itch that it's somehow not enough anymore. That the new one would fix something. Here's the question Galbraith forces you to ask. Where did that itch actually come from? Did it rise up naturally from inside you like hunger or thirst? Or was it built deliberately by people paid an enormous amount of money to build exactly that itch inside exactly you? Let me show you the scale. In 2024, digital advertising alone in the US was a $259 billion industry. Not all advertising, just the digital slice. $259 billion. That's nearly 0.9% of the entire American economy, spent on one goal, making you want. And digital's only a piece. Total advertising has run between 1.3 and 2% of economic output for 2 decades. Sit with the weight of that. A measurable chunk of the most productive economy in history goes not to making things, but to manufacturing the wanting of things, to installing desire in people who were otherwise going to be just fine. Here's the logic you can't escape. If demand were purely natural, you wouldn't need a $250 billion industry constantly shaping where it goes. You don't advertise water to a person dying of thirst. You advertised to the person who was content until the ad found them. That's the dependence effect in one frame. The need wasn't there. The system that profits from satisfying it also created it. Now here's the part most people get wrong, so listen closely. Galbraith was not calling you weak. He was not making a moral argument about your willpower or discipline. That misses the whole point. He was describing architecture, a system built on purpose by smart people who are ruthlessly good at what they do. Blaming yourself for feeling the pull of that machine is like blaming yourself for getting wet in the rain. So that's the first moving part. The wanting isn't fully yours. Much of it was installed from outside, and the install never stops. So you feel the pressure of all that wanting, and respond the only sane way you know. You try to earn your way out. You get better at your job. You get the promotion. You become more productive, more skilled, more valuable. This is where the effort's supposed to pay off. And 2 years later, you're at the same table, feeling the same pressure. Same squeeze, bigger title. The relief you were promised never actually arrived. Here's where this stops being a feeling and starts being arithmetic. Because the gap I'll describe is measured, tracked, and published by the government every single year. Since the year 2000, American worker productivity has grown by roughly 63%. You produce dramatically more value per hour than workers did 25 years ago. By the numbers, you are crushing it. And over that exact same stretch, real hourly pay grew by roughly 23%. Say those two numbers next to each other. 63% more productive, 23% better paid. The rest of that value, the difference, went somewhere. Much of it just didn't show up in your real hourly pay. That widening space between what you produce and what you're paid is not imagination. It's the space you've lived inside. You've been told to work harder to close a gap that was never structured to close. So when you feel like you're sprinting and the scenery isn't moving, hear me. You are not failing to keep up. The reward stopped keeping up with you. There's a name for what that mismatch does to a person. A researcher named Johannes Segrist studied it for years. He called it effort-reward imbalance. The idea is brutally simple. Work runs on a kind of social contract. You put in effort, you get back reward. Money, respect, security, a future. When effort climbs while reward stays flat, the body and mind stop treating it as temporary and start treating it as chronic strain. Not laziness, not weakness, strain. The kind that builds quietly year after year until one day you call it burnout. And wonder why you feel hollow inside a life that looks fine on paper. This isn't abstract. In American worker studies, effort-reward imbalance and overcommitment keep getting linked to worse mental health. When effort dramatically outweighs reward, the damage shows up in the body and the mind. The contract is quietly breaking. The Federal Reserve's own data echoes the mood. In 2024, 29% of adults said they were financially worse off than a year before. Nearly 1 in 3. In an economy that, on paper, was supposedly doing great. So get this straight. The problem was never that you spend too much or try too little. The problem is a system structured, from the ground up, to make sure you always need more. Now we get to the cruelest part of the machine. The part that moves the finish line. Picture the number. The one you told yourself would fix everything. Maybe a salary. Maybe an amount in savings. The magic figure where you finally exhale and think, okay, now I can relax. We all have one. And maybe you've hit a version of it. You crossed a line you once dreamed about. And here's the eerie thing that happened. It felt normal almost immediately. Within weeks, the dream number was just your new baseline, and the relief never showed up. If that's happened to you, you are not ungrateful, and you are not broken. You are describing one of the most influential and most debated findings in the economics of happiness. In 1974, an economist named Richard Easterlin found something that broke the simple rules everyone assumed were true. Within a single country, at a single moment, richer people really do report being happier than poorer people. That part holds. But across time, when an entire society grew richer decade over decade, average happiness barely moved at all. More money for everyone. More cars, more square footage, more stuff. And national contentment basically stayed put. The Easterlin paradox. How on earth is that possible? Because your reference point rises right along with you. The moment you reach the bar quietly climbs higher. Last year's luxury becomes this year's baseline. And so you need a new luxury just to feel the same spark you felt before. Recent research put a number on it. Rising expectations can absorb anywhere from half to all of the gain from earning more. Let that land. You earn more, your standards rise to match, and the gain you were chasing evaporates the instant you touch it. Psychologists have an older name for this loop, the hedonic treadmill. Satisfaction arrives, feels great, fades, you drift back to baseline. You're running hard, and the belt underneath you is running just as hard in the opposite direction. And here's the brutal elegance. Galbraith saw this in 1958. He did not have the phrase lifestyle inflation. He described the mechanism precisely, then watched the next 70 years prove him right. You can see it in the mood of the country right now. In 2024, American worker engagement fell to a 10-year low. Just 31% described themselves as engaged. The rest show up, go through the motions, quietly check out. Another number haunts me. More than a third of American workers now say their job is, quote, just a job to get them by. Not a calling, not a path, a holding pattern they circle while waiting for a runway that keeps moving. And it hits younger workers hardest. Among under 35s, engagement dropped most, and Gen Z came in less engaged than the year before. The cohort everyone says is redefining success, and the data shows them quietly disconnecting from the whole game. You hear it in what they want. In a 2025 survey, a majority of Gen Z said they value peace of mind over wealth. Most said they'd take less income for more time and balance. Not laziness. A generation deciding rationally not to chase a moving line. That's what a moving finish line does over a lifetime. It turns striving into treading water, and dresses that treading water up in the language of ambition, so you don't notice you're not getting anywhere. Now you might tell yourself this status game, this keeping up business, is something rich people do. The yacht crowd. Not you. You're just trying to get by. Here's the uncomfortable part. The pressure to spend on status is strongest exactly where the money is tightest. The data is not subtle. A Federal Reserve study out of Dallas looked at car buying. Lower income, non-prime consumers showed a stronger pull toward prestige brands. Not despite their tight budgets. Connected to them. And this held even when researchers controlled for the exact price of the vehicle. For non-prime buyers in low-income neighborhoods, that preference for prestige closed almost half of the luxury brand demand gap. Think hard about that. If status spending were just a hobby for the wealthy, that pattern simply would not exist. But it does, and it lives right where the financial pain is sharpest. Those who can least afford the game often play it hardest. It shows up in housing too. When local inequality rises, households up and down the ladder take on more debt. They stretch to reach more desirable neighborhoods. Families well below the top took on heavier costs just to hold their place in line. The picture rhymes every time. A family stretches into a nicer neighborhood. Bigger house, bigger mortgage. 2 years later, the same gnawing insecurity has followed them through the door, just with a higher monthly payment attached. There's even causal evidence. Given access to credit, status-driven spending went up, strongest among lower-income people. Borrowing to keep up with the neighbors isn't a stereotype. It's documented, measurable behavior, and easy credit pours gasoline on it. And here's the symptom that ties it together. The American personal savings rate has slid into the low single digits lately. Years ago, we kept around 7.5% of our income. Now a fraction of that. We earn more than almost any society in history, and we keep almost none of it. Watch the gears turn in real time. In 2024, 32% of adults said their income had risen over the past year. But 37% said their spending rose right alongside it or faster. The raise comes in the door, the lifestyle's already waiting. So here's the part one need you to hear. You are not losing to yourself. You are not weak, undisciplined, or uniquely bad at this. You are playing a game whose incentives keep quietly moving the finish line just out of your reach. The machine manufactures the want. The gap eats the reward. The finish line slides back the second you reach it. And the pressure to keep spending hits hardest exactly where you can least afford to absorb it. That is not a glitch in the system. That is the system. It's working precisely as it was built to work. The fact that you feel exhausted and behind isn't a sign that it's broken. It's a sign that it's succeeding. Now, I'd be doing you a disservice if I let Galbraith stand here unchallenged, like his word is gospel. Because one of the sharpest economists of the entire 20th century read this exact argument and absolutely tore into it. In 1961, Friedrich Hayek wrote a response with a title that pulls no punches. He called Galbraith's central conclusion, quote, a complete non sequitur, a logical leap that simply does not follow. And his point is genuinely strong. Hayek said, fine, your wants are shaped by the society around you. Of course they are. But that does not make them fake. It does not make them less urgent, less real, or any less truly yours. His example was devastating in its simplicity. Your love of music, of literature, of art. None of that is innate. You weren't born craving a symphony or a great novel. Culture created those desires through education and exposure. So if a want is worthless because culture created it, we'd throw out art and music along with the new phone. That's absurd. He added one more limit worth respecting. No single advertiser actually controls you. Your wants are pulled by a whole culture, rival companies, your neighbors, everyone around you. The machine's real, but not a puppeteer. So who's right? Both point at something true. Galbraith shows the machine exists, that demand gets manufactured at industrial scale. And Hayek reminds you the machine's existence doesn't automatically make every want it touches meaningless. That's the tension you live inside. The goal was never to reject every desire and live in a cave. The goal is learning which wants the machine installed and which are actually genuinely yours. Those are not the same thing. So knowing all this, what do you actually do on a Tuesday afternoon? Understanding the machine does not switch it off. It runs whether you understand it or not. But understanding it changes what you do the moment you feel the pull. First, name the want before you act on it. When the itch hits, ask one question. Was this mine yesterday? Did I want this 2 days ago? Or did it appear after something showed it to me? Wait a day, watch how often it dissolves. Second, change the number you track. Stop measuring the raise. Stop measuring income. Start measuring the margin. The gap between what comes in and what goes out. What you keep is the one score the machine cannot reach in and move. Third, audit who sets your reference point. If your finish line keeps sliding, look honestly at who you're watching every day. The feeds, the neighbors, the highlight reels. The comparison is the fuel the engine runs on. You control what you feed it. If you want the original argument in full, Galbraith's The Affluent Society is the source it all comes from. And it reads better than most things written this decade. I'll leave it down in the description. Full disclosure, that's an affiliate link, so grabbing it there helps the channel at no extra cost to you. But the idea is what matters here, not the link. Steal it from a library if you have to. So let's put the machine back together one final time so that you can never unsee it again. The wanting gets manufactured by an industry that spends a slice of the entire economy installing desire in you. The reward stops matching the effort, and the gap between what you produce and what you're paid keeps widening. The finish line moves the instant you reach it because your reference point climbs along with your income, and the pressure hits hardest where the money's thinnest. For parts, one machine, built to keep you running and never arriving. Galbraith saw the whole thing back in 1958, and he couldn't have known the half of how right he'd turn out to be. But he handed you the blueprint anyway, written in one plain sentence that has only gotten truer with every passing year. Wants are increasingly created by the process by which they are satisfied. Now you know the sentence. The question is what you do with it. If this rearranged something in your head, subscribe. There's a whole machine still left to take apart, and I'd like you here. I'm Max. I'll see you in the next one.